UFC 297 has announced to come back into Toronto, and today I wanted to talk about this on the channel for a long time, but I feel like because I'm a Canadian and because the UFC is coming back and we're going to be talking about UFC Canada, I thought it'd be a good time to make this video because I don't understand something, guys, okay? I don't understand something. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Before we do, though, I do want to say, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels. Let's talk about some UFC fans. So, the thing that I don't understand, guys, is why everybody, no matter what, sits back and cheers for their own guy. Now, I respect it, okay? I really do. It's like you're Canadian. I'm a Canadian guy. There's going to be a lot of Canadians coming in on the Canadian MMA card, and I don't understand why everybody sits back. I could get it if you were in the arena, you're cheering for your guy, that's what's coming, but I have so many people around me, right, just constantly cheering for a Canadian, no matter what. I feel like I'm alone in this thought, okay, guys? Like, again, there's no problem in doing that, but I feel like I'm alone where I look at the fighter as an individual before I look at their nationality. And that's not to come here and say, like, oh my god, like, everybody is just caring about people's skin colors and stuff like that. That's not where I'm coming from, okay? I'll use it as an example, and this is really what made me start thinking about it. I, back in the day, was a huge, well, I kind of still am, huge Johnny Hendricks fan, okay? I was a massive Johnny Hendricks fan. I was watching, and my friends and I had the biggest party when he was fighting GSP. I remember being the only guy actively cheering for Johnny Hendricks in that fight. I was the only one happy that night because he was beating up GSP and ended up being a robbery. But everybody, and I get like GSP might be a bad example because he has a lot of fans, but people just look at it and will ignore anything they know about other fighters as long as it's their guy, you know? I just don't really understand that mentality. I kind of do. Like, again, if you're in the arena, but why wouldn't you really look at the fighters in particular? Like, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's Canadian fighters that I hate. Like, if I look at a fighter, they're Canadian, and I like them, that's a bonus. For example, UFC 297, I will be cheering for Charles Jourdain probably more than anybody. Close to my home, I really like him as a person, but that's it though. I like Charles Jourdain as a guy, and I like his style, I like him as a fighter. It doesn't matter. Like, Charles Jourdain, if he wasn't Canadian, and he was fighting a Canadian, I'd be cheering for Charles Jourdain. Like, I don't understand. Like, yeah, I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from, man, because I feel like nobody shares this same perspective as me. There are fighters that are nowhere near Canada that I will be cheering for more than anybody close to my home. You know, that's not to say that Canadians, like, the Canadian fighters aren't great. Canadian fighters aren't worth respect. I'm just saying, like, that has nothing to do with how much I like a fighter, how much I will be cheering for a fighter. Like, I'm going to take a look at the UFC 297 card right now. So I'm on the UFC website, guys, and this is a perfect example, an absolute perfect example. Neil Magny versus Mike Malott. Mike Malott is probably going to be a Canadian star. This dude has so much potential, and I like Mike Malott. I do. I like him, and I like everything that he does. I think he has a huge potential to bring Canadian MMA back like George St. Pierre does. But I'm going to be cheering for Neil Magny. I joke around this on the channel a lot. I feel like I'm Neil Magny's only fan, but I've done nothing but respect this guy his entire career. I love that he is always willing to take on everybody. I think he's a good guy, and I just have always been cheering for Neil Magny no matter what. I really like him. Been watching him forever. Been cheering for him since he pretty much came to the UFC. I like Neil Magny, and I will be cheering for him over Mike Malott. Just because I'm Canadian, I'm not going to sit here and cheer for Mike Malott. Again, I'm just using this as an example because there's very few fights that are official for this card. I like Mike Malott as well, but I'm going to be cheering for Neil Magny. I don't care where Neil Magny is from. I don't care who Neil Magny is. I care about who he is as a fighter and who he is as a person. I don't care about his location or his culture. I don't care. I like Neil Magny. I'm having a little bit of trouble talking about this because, like, all I can say is what I just said. So I hope you guys really understand what I'm saying in this sense. And please let me know down in the comments, like, am I alone? Because I'll use GSP for another example. I don't care about GSP. Like, he seems like an okay guy. I was just never personally a fan of his. Just because he's Canadian, just because he's one of the greatest, doesn't make me a fan of GSP. I just never really got attached to him. When, it's crazy to me, man. It's crazy. I was cheering for Johnny Hendricks over him, and those are pretty much the only examples I can have. I don't care where people are from, and I don't care what culture they come from. I just care about them, you know? That's what I factor in when cheering for somebody. Like I said, it's fun if I were at a UFC Toronto event and I'm like, we're all cheering for the Canadian. That's a fun thing to do. But if I'm sitting back in the fights just with my family watching for myself, I'm not going to go, all right, Canadian, let's go. You know, maybe it's just because over in Canada, our country's kind of splitting apart. Maybe that's why we're not any sort of patriotic as much as the UFC events. Like, the Canadian fans are great for UFC, but our country is just not patriotic at all. Our country is just completely split apart, and we don't have that like Canadian brotherhood like so many other countries do within themselves. Maybe that's the reason. But again, I'd love to know what you guys think down below, because I feel like I'm alone in this thought. I really do. I know nobody in my personal life that thinks like I do, besides maybe my mom. So perhaps that's where it's strained from, but who knows, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Please, again, I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. I'd love to know if I'm alone. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. On the screen right now, if you'd like to continue watching the Clen channel, there'll be 2 videos for you on screen right now. I will see you either there or in the next video, everybody. Take care.